Future Vision, NeateBox Welcome, presented by Gavin Neate of NeateBox on the 23rd of September 2021. Future Vision. Future Vision is a series of technology events aimed at people living with sight loss. Future Vision is a collaborative project between 7 local independent sight societies, including Sight Advice South Lakes, Cumbria, My Sight's Notts, Nottingham, Sight Airedale, the Airedale area of North and West Yorkshire, Support for Sight in West and South Essex, Sight Concern Worcestershire in Worcestershire, Sutton Vision in the London Borough of Sutton, and the Hercules Visual Impairment Network in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire.
Good morning, everybody. This is Future Vision, which, as people know, is a collaboration of 7 small sight loss organisations around the country. As you know, every month we like to have a tech event called Future Vision. We try to go to the leading edge of things. So that's why we have invited Gavin Neate, the founder of NeateBox, and also, I understand, Entrepreneur of the Year as of last week. So over to you, Gavin. You want to explain why you're Entrepreneur of the Year as well? That would be nice.
That's made me grin, Tim. That has made me grin. Entrepreneur of the Year sounds like it could be international or even like the most recognized position. But before I explain who I am, yes, the National Diversity Awards were last week held in Liverpool in the Liverpool Cathedral, and I was nominated for Entrepreneur of Excellence in the National Diversity Awards, and amazingly I won it. I say even more amazing as I'm in the Highlands of Scotland now. My sister's a bit poorly and she lives on a farm, and they'd asked me to do a acceptance speech. So I did an acceptance speech holding a chicken with a dog looking up at me and a goat eating some grass next to me. So it was quite exciting, but I didn't expect my name to be called out. So there I was, Samantha Renck, who many people might know, and Connie Huck was one of the presenters, and was called up onto stage, and of course I'm not there. I'm on a farm on the northwest coast of Scotland. Anyway, that's enough about that. Let me tell you about me, and let me tell you about why I'm truly excited to have been invited to speak to you guys. Truly excited, and that's no exaggeration. So my name is Gavin Neate, and I am the CEO of a company called NeateBox Limited. I'm not a techie. However, I wasn't a techie, and I'm now a little bit more of a techie. I am just the CEO and founder of the company. However, for 18 years, I worked for Guide Dogs for the Blind as a guide dog mobility instructor. Absolutely loved it. I did it after leaving the military. I was a military policeman, and I believe there's some vets here. So hi, gents and ladies and gents who are vets. I was in the military from 86 to 96 as a Royal Military Police dog handler with the RAF, and then joined Guide Dogs for the Blind as a guide dog mobility instructor. So training blind people how to use guide dogs. Yes, working with the dogs, but more importantly, training people how to use them. And then by 2003, I was getting really excited because I was having people turning up to my training courses and saying, oh yeah, I'm using this amazing new bit of tech. Sometimes it was GPS, increasingly it was banking, sometimes it was emails, sometimes it was messaging, but I was getting really excited because more of my clients were telling me about the tech they were using, and they were teaching me, which was really cool on a class when I was teaching them about dogs. So by 2006, the iPhone 2S came along, and then VoiceOver just totally changed the whole narrative. Up till then, people had been spending money, and many of you guys have lived in a world where you had to buy the hardware, and then you had to buy more hardware, and then you had to buy more software just to make something as compatible as or as accessible as it was for everybody else. But when iPhone 2S came along, all of a sudden, VoiceOver meant that the iPhone was standard. It had accessibility as standard. It wasn't perfect, but it improved. By 2009, I was going crazy with, oh my goodness me, couldn't it do this? And couldn't it do that? And what if it could do this? And what if it could do that? And one of my passions at that time had been or a passion of mine, it was a frustration of mine, was I would get to pedestrian crossings and I would see how hard it was for people to press buttons, because the button was sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes out of reach. It was certainly not in a position where it was conducive to using straight line techniques if you're a guide dog owner, or squaring off if you're a long cane user, or any of the techniques that I had been taught to deliver with my training. So I just thought, oh, I wonder if a mobile phone could press the button. Remarkably, at that point, that word, I wonder if, led me to invent the world's first pedestrian crossing operated by smartphones. So instead of finding the button, your phone presses the button just by you standing next to the crossing. So you can be standing in the perfect spot and then cross the road. And we could turn on audible signals and we could increase crossing times. And I was like, wow, as a mobility instructor, I was like, did I just do this? And found out, as I say, it was the first time anybody ever had done it before. So I was then in a difficult position, because I was a mobility instructor at the time working for guide dogs. I had invented something that nobody had ever done before, and I was in the job that I loved, but I had to leave because there was no way I could make this worldwide unless I actually left guide dogs, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I was in the job for life. I wanted to retire as a guide dog mobility instructor. However, by 2017, we had installed it in an entire town in Scotland. We now have 2 entire towns in Scotland. We have crossings in Blackburn and in Edinburgh, and increasingly, and Dublin City Council have just installed them in South Dublin and are looking to install more. And that's pedestrian crossings. But we'll put pedestrian crossings to one side, because there's something even bigger than that. Because when I was studying it, I realized that, well, actually, it wasn't just for blind folk, it was also for wheelchair users. And it was also for people with mobility needs, or elderly people, or a parent with a pram, or a work person with bags. It was like, wow, everybody could use this. And then my brain was just whirring with the fact that I could develop solutions that all people could use. So instead of saying this is just for a specific group of people, I could say, wow, everybody could use this. And then that whole idea of society and community and coming up with solutions that everybody could use, and empowerment and bringing people together just became just all encompassing for me. And I realized that I had to be outside guide dogs. So by 2015, I'd left guide dogs, and I was coming up with loads of solutions and things that were going to help people. And the reason that I'm talking to you today, obviously, the pedestrian crossing was a route to it, and I want you to know about that as well. And it's called Button by NeateBox, and we'll come back to that later. But I then started looking at something else that had been really, really, really important to me, and that was customer service. Whenever, and I know all of you have gone into shops, and all of you have either waited for somebody to come to you, or you've gone up to speak to somebody and they haven't interacted with you in a way that was perfect. They've either not taken into consideration that you were using a long cane or a guide dog, or that the person next to you was just a supporter or a friend or a family, and they would speak to them and not you, or they would talk to your dog, or they would take the wrong arm, or they would say words like it's over there and stuff like that. And I was like, why is that happening? And I realized it was because staff just didn't know how to interact with not just visually impaired people, but deaf people, people with cerebral palsy, people with muscular dystrophy, people with dyslexia, diabetes, epilepsy, aphasia, ataxia. And I was like, why is this not being engaged with? Why are we not addressing this issue? And the problem we have is that we have individual charities and organizations going along to Sainsbury's and saying it's autism awareness. And then Sainsbury's are saying, right, brilliant, we're going to make sure as many of our staff are autism aware. But what that does is it says, here's a small group of people, rather than here's the 14.2 million people we have in the UK who are disabled. And I was realizing that I should and could be able to do something about this using technology, which is where Welcome came in. And it's so much bigger than that. Welcome is a way of communicating with staff before you walk through the door. It lets a staff member know that you're arriving, and lets them know what you need that day, but also how best to communicate with you. Now, this does loads of things. It, first of all, empowers you to say what you want. It empowers you to be in control of the relationship you have with the person in the store, or store or venue or hospital, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it empowers them not to feel awkward. It lets them know what best practice is, and it lets them know who you are and what you look like before you walk through the door. The advantage for the business is that you become more inclined to want to use their business. So they win out of this as well. The staff member also takes that information and goes through their entire life with it, because they're learning best practice, not just on visual impairment, but on aphasia and ataxia and epilepsy and autism and MS and dyslexia. And we're just about to add Tourette's and Parkinson's to the system. We've got 28 different conditions that we cover. And I found that this whole welcome thing was going to just totally change, not just the ability to get out and do stuff, but also for disabled people to be empowered, not just wait for things to be done for and to them. That's why I just won this award, because amazingly, considering I have absolutely, well, very, very little in academic knowledge, I was the first person in the world to ever deliver a solution that does in the moment staff training for the individual, that empowers the individual. And it gets bigger than that. One of the biggest problems we have in the United Kingdom and the world right now, as far as disability is concerned and elderly people, is loneliness. Loneliness is the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day if you're living in the worst situations. And one of the reasons for that is because we are increasingly worried about going outside. We were before the pandemic, but after the pandemic, it's got even worse, because God bless Zoom and the like, but we've got more used to doing this kind of thing rather than face-to-face stuff. So the intention here is that as people get the opportunity to go back outside, they want to maybe go to places where the people inside that place have never met them before. And increasingly disabled people were using places that they knew and that the person knew. And that's not just disabled people. I would go to a restaurant because I know it's gave me a good meal the previous time. But I find it very hard to go to new restaurants unless I'm feeling quite adventurous. But most people go to places they know. Disabled people always go to places, or generally go to places that they know, because they know they're going to get a level of service. I want disabled people to go anywhere they want. And when you look down a list of all the different venues that we have on our platform, you know that you can go there knowing that you're going to get consistent service. Okay, so here is the really cool stuff that I decided right at the very start. This is free. This is free to all users. You download the app, you use it you set up a profile, you use it for free. The business pays a small monthly subscription. Just by having 2 people through the door means that they will pay for the actual service that they're delivering. So everybody wins in this scenario. I wanted it to be free. We don't mine data. We don't need to know where you live because it's free. We don't need credit card details. This is not Cambridge Analytica style data gathering of disabled people. However, what we can do is we can turn around to the businesses and say, yeah, last month there were 5 people who were hearing impaired. Last month there were 4 wheelchair users. Last month there was 2 visually impaired people used your service. That means that they can improve the service they deliver because they know where they need to put their energies and efforts, or more of their energies and efforts. I love guide dogs and I love guide dog owners. They're absolutely amazing people, and they do they have an amazing task, and they just love them. But there are only 5,000 of them in the United Kingdom. There are 850,000 people who are autistic. But if a company thinks that they can put all their energy just into guide dogs and not think about autism, then they're mistaken, because the majority of people that come through their door are going to be autistic or have symptoms or be on that spectrum. So what we do is we level the playing field for everybody. We say everybody is important rather than these specific sectors, which is why we cover so many different conditions. I could talk about this all day, but Juji said earlier on, or it wasn't Juji, it might have been Stella, said, actually, I really like to see things being used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the platform, but I just want to open the floor just for 5 minutes, just in case anybody's got any questions. Now, I might answer those within the platform, but has anybody got any burning questions right now that maybe we can fit into just a 3 to 5 minute section? So you can do either hands in the air, or Tim can see if anybody's waving around at their screen right now, because you're all muted, I believe.
So if anybody just wants to shout out, that is absolutely fine. Okay. So I was going to ask a quick question, Gavin, if I get it first. Do you ever use it in conjunction with other things? So you've heard of On Vision and Air, those types of devices. Is there, have you ever, obviously you must have thought about that, but have you ever used them in conjunction? So the venue has your information, but there's somebody else, but somebody else might be, I don't know, using one of these other devices like Be My Eyes or Aira. Is that
100%. Yeah. So when a person looks at the venue that's on the platform, it will let the venue know if there is a specific. So if you have Sign Live is a super bit of kit, or Signly, if somebody knows that is in operation before they turn up, they know that they could use that when they arrive. Increasingly, what we want to do is work with the likes of Be My Eyes and Era, and we already work with Ewan's Guide and me included, and Access Able, and all these sorts of guys as far as review sites are concerned, and you'll see that in a second. But yeah, the future is decreasing the amount of routes to access solutions. So what you have is you have a portal that takes you to the different apps, because ultimately we don't want 40 apps on our phone to do different things. We want one app that is a portal to all of them, or an umbrella. And what we like to be able to do is point people and say, yeah, you can use this at this particular venue, or they're aware of this at this particular venue. So yeah, it's a good question, and definitely something that will be increasing more and more and more as we go into the future. But yeah, multi-disability and pan-disability means that we've got the opportunity to do that as an umbrella rather than just working in one specific area. Right, I'm going to go, oh, sorry, go on.
Can you tell me, does it, I mean, I presume it emits a signal which by Bluetooth or something, but is it something which emergency services could use to identify that somebody who's not demonstrating a disability actually has one?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question from Owen there. One of the things that I thought originally was, when I was looking at this as a solution, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if you had it on your phone and you had the Bluetooth operating on your phone, as the emergency services person came to you, they would know that person was epileptic or whatever, or had epilepsy or something like that. So there is something within that. What we can do in a scenario where somebody's going into a shop, the shop will know that person has epilepsy, as an example, so if they or diabetic. So if there was a seizure or an attack at the time that the person arrived, the staff inside that shop would know. What we haven't done is attached it to the emergency services yet, but as you might imagine, and as you pointed out there, the expansion of this is absolutely dramatic, because it's not just potentially for when you visit a shop or a hospital or a health center or a cinema or a betting office or anything. It's also when a gas man turns up at your door, potentially in the future. How do they know how to interact with the person inside the building? These are all things that we're looking at as a roadmap. Yeah. But right now,
Gavin, Colin wants to ask a question.
Go on, Colin, go on.
Yeah, it's just a complete out there question, but one of the problems I've experienced is getting buses to stop for me at a bus stop. Has anybody thought of a way to integrate this within the bus services and letting them know that there's a visually impaired person at a bus stop waiting?
Yeah, 100%, Colin. It's something that we ran a trial with First Bus, looking at how to do that on a particular route going from, I think it was the hospital to the airport in Glasgow. And it was something that we were doing with, so you would know if somebody was at the bus stop. As you might imagine, that's a massive, even if your app just did that, that would be absolutely dramatic. There were other people looking at that, but it's one of those things that we know we can do. Currently, what we can do really, really well is we can put it into the bus depot. So if you were turning up at the bus depot, then the person would know that you were arriving at the bus depot and then give you support to the bus stance or something like that. What's more challenging is where you have individual bus stops on a route. You might have 30 bus stops on that route, but that's something that we can look at, and we will be looking at further into the future. But you can mount all these things up on top, but as a tiny wee company, and trust me, there's only 4 of us, we've already done amazing things with this, and we've got fantastic partners, and we're going through investment, and I can't tell you who with just now, but 2 very large organizations. One's a charity, and one's a charity investing in a business company is remarkable in itself, but the other one is a very large investor. So we're hoping that we'll have the opportunity to do all of these things. And one of the things I'm really keen is that when we get feedback from users and our members of the app, they suggest things that we can improve, and I love improving it based on what people suggest. I came up with the idea, and I had to do a lot of it myself to start with, but it was based on my 18 years of experience of visual impairment. But I've had to be like a massive sponge, if you might imagine. I knew a lot about visual impairment, but I didn't know anything about different conditions, and I've had to learn a lot. But being open to learning is one of the most important things you can do as an innovator.
Yeah, because there's a really good app that I use for public transport. It's the Move It app. I'm sure everybody's heard of it and is aware of it, but that tells you when your line is approaching. Well, that's great because it lets you know it's approaching, but if the bus driver hasn't seen you or whatever, it just goes straight past.
Yeah, and this is so important, and I think everybody, up until the time that I got involved in this, everybody was talking about accessibility and access as a physical need. They were all going, oh yeah, I need better access at this particular building. And if you think about wheelchair users, for instance, they all talk about better access physically. But what I recognized was that what we needed to work on more, and where we needed to work, was social access. You can get to the door of the most accessible building in the entire world, and unless the staff member understands how to interact with a disabled person, you might not get through the door, because they might go, oh no, dogs are allowed, mate, or something like that. So yeah, it's massive for us to look at the social access as much as anything else.
Gavin, I think
Thank you.
Anthony wants to ask a question as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
Anthony,
just wondering, where is the data held? Because obviously this is quite sensitive information about people. Is it held on their device, or is it held on the central server? And who has access to it when the person's not using the service?
So we hold all of the data as a company. The data that we keep, and you'll see in a second, because I'll go through a sign-up process with you, is actually really low impact data, because it's all generalized rather than personalized. But we are the data holder. So none of the companies hold the data. If we're working with Northlink Ferries, they don't hold the data on the individual. We can give them anonymized data as to how many people of a particular disability use their service that month, for instance, because that could be really useful for them. But no, all the data is held by us. We're totally GDPR compliant. As you might imagine, as a person who came from my background, the importance for me with what we're doing is the integrity of the solution. I want anybody who uses it to trust us wholly, because it's more than my life's worth and more than my life's work is worth to lose that trust. So it's massively important, and I take on board your point, and please hold us open to scrutiny on that. And I'm very happy to be scrutinized on all of our data and how we collect it and what we do with it.
Any more question from anybody else?
I've got a question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Just a couple of things. If you have this system, aren't you in fact broadcasting around what your disability or vulnerability is?
To the venue that you want to go to, yes, you are. Not in general. Nobody else can see it. So if you're going to a particular venue and you want them to know that you have a hearing impairment, you can let them know before you walk through the door that you have a hearing impairment, if you feel that them knowing you have a hearing impairment is going to improve your interaction within that business. Of course, you don't have to use the app. You also don't have to put in what your disability is. You could say undisclosed condition. But if we go to the instance of somebody not wanting to use the app, no problem at all. I feel that if I've got 1 in 100 disabled people using the app, what it does is it raises the bar about disability awareness for everybody. So all those people that don't want to use the app and don't want a venue to know that they are a wheelchair user, of course, or it would be obvious they were, if they don't want them to interact with them in any way, then that's also fine. And I have no problem at all with people not using the app. And I explain to all my businesses, I say, guys, this is about 1 in 10 people coming through the door using the app, and your staff understanding disability more and more. You'll see when I'm just about to do the demo, so this will be the last question, but what I'll do is I'll talk people through the demo to show exactly what we do. But yes, I totally take on board, not everybody wants to let somebody know that they're disabled, especially if they have a hidden condition and it's maybe neurodiverse or mental health or something like this. But anybody who doesn't want somebody to know they're a guide dog owner before they walk through the door, I'm thinking, well, they're going to know when they walk through the door. What they might want to know is, please don't rush up to my dog and say, yes, I have a dog and your dog can probably spell mine. And, oh, I didn't know guide dogs were allowed to jump up and lick faces, which is generally what happens when somebody rushes up and gets on their hands and knees in front of a guide dog.
Yeah, because I've got kind of a follow-up question to that then. What's to stop someone from pretending they've got a disability to get into a place for ulterior motives?
Yeah, well, it depends on what their ulterior motives are, but anybody that uses the platform, we know that they've used the platform. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to means test this. You don't need a blue badge in order to use it. You don't have to prove a disability to use it. What we wanted to do was for people to have the freedom to use it if they felt they needed to. What this doesn't do is give you preferential treatment. What it does is it raises the bar so that you get the same treatment as everybody else. So you don't get to the front of the queue using this app, you just get in the queue using the app. It means you can take a seat until somebody gets to you. We've never had any abuse of it, but yes, I'm open to the fact that somebody might pretend that they have a visual impairment and come in with dark glasses on and then pretend that they need sighted guide. That might happen. If, of course, the staff member becomes concerned that somebody might be trying to pull the wool over their eyes in some way, they could easily just say to us, we felt that somebody wasn't, and then we would just maybe contact that person and maybe ask them some questions or just observe. Now, every time somebody uses the app, we know they've used the app, as I say, with the data holders. So yeah, we've not had anybody using it in that way yet. I'm sure sooner or later somebody might. I would imagine the people who might be people who have maybe mental health issues themselves. That's a presumption, but I can't see anybody getting any benefit from using it other than having somebody interact with them as if they're a disabled person. Good question.
Anyway, carry on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. So on the screen I have now, for those of you who have no vision or low vision and unable to see the screen, on the screen on the right-hand side, I have my mobile phone. I have not a representation. This is my mobile phone live. So when I play with my mobile phone, you can see it moving, going through all the different apps that I have. The app on the screen on the mobile phone is Welcome, which is the name of our app. On the left-hand side of the screen is what the venue sees. So it's what the, we'll call this, let's just say it's a cinema. In fact, no, let's have a coffee shop, because I've got good news for you at the end of this. But let's say this is a coffee shop that we want to go to. Okay, so I've got the app on my phone. Now, I'm going to open the app on my phone by just pressing on the app, which is called Welcome. And it opens up at the main page because I've already got a profile, and it says, where are we going? And it's got in the middle, plan visit. Now, it's no surprise that all of this is voiceover compliant. And if I just turn on voiceover just for a second.
Voiceover on. Welcome. Where are we going? Today. Upcoming. Plan your trips here. Plan visit. Button. Voiceover off.
So everything on here is compliant with voiceover so that visually impaired people and people who use voiceover can use it. So what I've got here is where are we going? But if I go to the bottom in the middle, it's got profile. So I'm going to click on profile for a second. And on here, this is the profile that I set up when I download and use the app. At the very top, there is a picture of me and then the name I want somebody to address me by. Now that could be Mr. Smith, it could be Mickey Mouse, it could be anything you want, but it's got my name, which is Gavin, and it's got a photograph of me so that they could recognize me when I arrive. Think of that in the form of an airport or a train station where you've booked customer assistance and the person doesn't recognize you necessarily, you haven't got a mobility aid with you, and you just want them to recognize who you are. Underneath that is my email address, and then awareness required for. Now, I can click any one of 28 different conditions in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some that are relevant to the people that are on the call. So I'm going to take out aphasia, which I had, and I'm going to take out dementia and epilepsy, which I had before, and I'm going to put in, let's say, ataxia, and I'm going to put in, let me see, well, I'll put in dementia because that's quite an interesting one because there's so many more people with dementia these days, and I'm putting in visual impairment with a guide dog as an example. So I then click done, and that has now changed on the mobile phone. It's changed what my awareness required for. It's interesting, we don't use the word disability or disabled anywhere in the app. This is just what do I want staff to have awareness of. Underneath that, it's got things that I would like if you've got them. These are service requirements. So if a venue has something, I want access to it. And this goes back to what Tim was saying about IRA or Be My Eyes or something like that. If somebody is aware of it, then this we've mentioned here. So I've got on here sighted guide, low counter, sensory room, accessible toilet, BSL, sign language, disabled parking, wheelchair loan, or lip reading. But I can go in here and I can click any number of different things that if it is available, I want it. We've got things like Irish Sign Language, step-free access, mobility scooter loan, interpreter, BSL remote interpreting, which would be BSL remote interpreting might be Sign Live or Signly or something like that. Pool hoist, accessible changing rooms, accessible fitting rooms, pool pods, things that you might never have heard of, but are useful for lots of people. So what I'm now going to do is go to my visits, which is the main screen that said plan visit. So if I now click on plan visit, this will give me a list of the venues from the one that's closest to me to the one that's furthest away. Now, because I'm in the Northwest Highlands, and the Highlands of Scotland right now, the ones that are closest to me right now, strangely enough, are Orkney and Shetland and Aberdeen and the like. So these are all Northlink ferry terminals. And I'm going to go through some of the ones that we've got on here, because what's important to realize with Welcome is that this is totally cross-sector. We cover every single sector. In fact, anywhere where you are met by somebody who provides a service to you. So Northlink ferry terminals, Stirling Council, Dundee Council, NHS Golden Jubilee Hospital Eye Clinic, Falkirk Wheel, Forth Valley Sensory Centre, Falkirk Town Hall, Callender House Museum, Visit Scotland, the Hippodrome Cinema, Kinnell Museum, the Forge Shopping Centre, Seascape in Fife, which is a visual impairment charity, Kirkcaldy Galleries at Edinburgh Airport, Diageo, Guide Dogs for the Blind in Edinburgh, Scottish Government, Utilita Energy, Leonard Cheshire in Scotland, Next, the department store we just launched just recently, St James Quarter, which is a shopping centre, RNIB, Deloitte, Blackwood Housing, Doubletree Hilton. We've got other hotels on there, Edinburgh Printmakers, which is a museum, Scottish Parliament, more Next centres, voluntary action in the Shetlands, Northlink in Lerwick, RNRB Belfast, who are just about to launch. And then the next one down there, which is coming soon, which is Dr. Brew's Coffee and Blues in Cumbria. And it is the first Cumbrian venue to use the app. And I believe they're in Barrow, is it Barrow and Furness or Barrow and Windham? Oh, Barrow, I think it might be. Anyway, I'll make sure. Oh, in fact, I know exactly where it is.
Barrow and Furness then.
Yeah, so welcome to Dr. Brew's, your new favourite coffee shop serving speciality locally roasted Carvetti coffee, soup sandwiches and those brownies. And they're currently not on the platform. They're on the platform, but they will be. So it is Windermere, Grosvenor Terrace, which is on the hill. And they're going to be launching soon. But then we've got all the way down to the bottom where we've got the likes of loads of health centres, sports centres down in the borders, sorry, not in the borders, in the Midlands. So Salford Leisure and all these guys, lots in Manchester just about to open. All the way to the bottom where I think we've got we've got a medical centre in Brighton, but we've got University of Kent just about to join us as well, and Information Centre in Bridport. So there's lots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the demo venue, which is the Welcome demo venue, which is here somewhere. Okay, which is a Welcome demonstration venue, which we're going to call the coffee shop. So here's our coffee shop. It's called the Welcome Coffee Shop. And we've got the opening times of the coffee shop. We've then got general information about the coffee shop. We've got how accessible it is. Guide dog amenities, water available for the dog, a toileting area perhaps, low counters, accessible toilet. And then they've got what assistance they can provide. There are then links to Access Able and Ewan's Guide where there might be reviews about that venue already, and then a link to the venue website. I now want to go, so I'm going to click on the going button. And it says, when do I want to go to the coffee shop? So let's go tomorrow between 12 and 5. So I click on 12 and 5. The coffee shop then gets to ask us a couple of questions. The first question is, are you exempt from wearing a mask? Yes, I am. And the second question is, do you have any food allergies? Well, yes, I do. I am allergic to peanuts. So I'll put that in. Peanuts. Yes, peanuts. I then click next. It then says, what do you want to do on this visit? And we're going to a coffee shop. And I know, because they have the most amazing carrot cake, I know that I want carrot cake and a flat white coffee. So that's what I'm going to ask. So I put it on speech to text, and I say, I would like a carrot cake and a flat white coffee, and also to use the accessible toilet and to be shown the layout. So there's my message. And then I click next, and I get a message that says, this will confirm your booking. And that's all I've had to do. That's on the app. On the app, it says, are you sure you want to proceed? So I can click yes yet, but I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to go across to the left-hand side with the venue, and I'm going to click on log in. So if I click on log into the venue, this is me now, the guys at the coffee shop, logging into the actual system. So I have to put in an email and a password to get into the system, but I can see in my particular coffee shop that Judith came today between 9 and 12, and she's already there. Judith is somebody who has a condition, dementia, aphasia, and epilepsy. It's one of my colleagues who was doing a demo this morning. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to click yes on my mobile phone. And at the same time as I do that, which I've just done, and it says, the message on the phone says your requirements have been sent. Instantly, The venue gets a phone call, a text message, and an email to say Gavin's coming tomorrow between 12 and 5. So I click on the app and I can see Gavin, and I can then go, oh, Gavin wants me to know about dementia, visual impairment, and he also has a guide dog, and he wants me to know a little bit about ataxia. So now I click on view. So this is the owner of the coffee shop who's going to learn a little bit more about Gavin's needs. So I click on that and I get a picture of Gavin, a large picture. I get Gavin's name. I get what areas Gavin wants me to have raised awareness, and they are dementia, visual impairment with guide dog, and ataxia. I then get Gavin's requirements, which are for disabled parking and a low counter. I then get a message from Gavin, and I was using speech to text, and I read it badly, but it says speech to text, and I said, I would like carrot cake and a flat white coffee, and also to use the accessible toilet and to be shown the layout. So I know what Gavin wants to do when he gets here as well. Underneath that, I've got an overview of dementia, one paragraph, an overview of what it is to be a guide dog owner, and an overview of what it is to have ataxia. Now, these overviews are generalized. They are for anybody with dementia, anybody with a visual impairment, or anybody with ataxia. So if we just look at ataxia, for instance. Ataxia is a rare and progressive neurological condition that affects people's balance, coordination, and movement. It also affects their sight, speech, and hearing. Ataxia does not affect people's cognition. Some people with ataxia use wheelchairs or walking aids, and some do not. They may appear drunk with slurred speech and a wobbly gait, and are often accused of being so. They may experience fatigue and tire easily. Now, that's the same for anybody with this particular condition. I might just see them as a wheelchair user or a long cane user or something like that, but not take into consideration that they might be fatigued when they get to the door. So I would make sure that there was a seat available for when they arrive, as an example. But for guide dog, it says a guide dog is a recognized mobility aid which can improve a visually impaired person's mobility. Guide dog owners have undergone specific training and their dogs have routine health checks. It is against the law not to allow entry. That's the information that we provide about guide dogs as a very brief overview. But we then have top tips. So I click on the top tips tab and it says tips on how to interact with somebody with dementia, tips on how to interact with somebody who has a guide dog, not just this app user, but anybody with a guide dog, because it's a staff training tool. The very top one says, please introduce yourself first at the start of any conversation. Please do not touch, distract, or feed my guide dog. If needing to move me, please ask me if I need sighted guide. More information on sighted guide can be found via the guide dogs link, and I'll show you that in a second. Always ask if you would like how I would like to be guided, and ask how I would like this to be carried out. Never take my arm before you have this information. Precise verbal directions are really useful. Expressions like it is this way or it is across the concourse are not helpful. Remember to say goodbye before you go so that I know you have finished assisting me. And if a guide dog is wearing a red and white checked harness, this signifies the person has a hearing impairment as well as a visual impairment. If a staff member reads that half an hour before a person walks through the door, you can quite easily imagine that that guide dog owner is probably going to have the best service they've ever had in their entire life, because not many people would remember this if they were trained a year or 2 years before, if they've had training. But there's also information there on ataxia. Now, the reason that we use this information is because we approach each of the charities and say, what would you like people to know? If you could give us an overview and top tips, then what we will do is we will promote your charity for free. So what we've got here is links to Alzheimer's UK, we've got links to Guide Dogs for the Blind, and we've got links to Ataxia UK. And these are the charities pages where they say members of staff can click on this and find out more. And we do all that for free. So we just promote charities and their information for free. The last tab is question responses. And these were the questions that were asked in advance, which were, are you exempt from wearing a mask? Yes. Do you have any food allergies? Yes, peanuts. So we know that before Gavin arrives. So at the top right-hand side of the screen, I've got a button that says accept, because one thing knowing you're coming, but it's another thing you knowing that we know you're coming. I'm now going to click on accept. And that sends an email back to Gavin. So if I go back to my mobile phone and go into my emails, right at the very top here, I've got an email that says, hi, Gavin, we're very happy to let you know that your visit planned on the 24th of September at 12 o'clock at the coffee shop has been confirmed, and they look forward to your visit. So my anxiety levels go down because I know that you know I'm coming. Okay, this is now going back to one of the questions that was asked earlier. So if I go back into the app and go into my visits, which is at the bottom left, we now know that that visit is confirmed, and we're now waiting for the day to come when we're doing our visit, which is tomorrow. So I go back into the app or the venue now and go down to the venue. It says it's already a planned visit. Now, we know Gavin's coming, it's been planned, and we're just waiting for his arrival. If we go back into the app, what we can now do is go into our visits, upcoming visits, and see that the visit is there. One of the questions earlier, I think it was Colin, but it might not have been Colin, who said, does it use Bluetooth? And well, right at the very start, we did use Bluetooth and GPS. But what we found very quickly, our users actually just like to let people know when they were ready, not when the phone decided by proximity. So if you go into the visit itself, there is a manual arrival button. Now, think of all the situations this would be useful. Hotels, shops, wherever, you might just want to catch your breath. You might just want nobody to come and serve you. You might need to get a seat before they come up to you. So you click the manual arrival button and it says, are you sure you want to tell the staff you've arrived? You click yes. That sends a message directly to the venue. The screen is now flashing on the left-hand side to say the person has arrived. So you dictate, not the phone or your location, when you want somebody to know that you're actually in the building, if you want them to know you're in the building. Please bear in mind that this system isn't just to get you help, but it's also to avoid you getting help. So you could go into a business and go, oh, please, I'm just practicing my cane skills. And it means the person doesn't come up to you because your message might be, please just don't approach me. I'm very happy on my own today. There is a lot of information there. The last bit I'm going to give you is that before we move to questions, is within 24 hours, I get a message to say, would you like to rate the venue? So if I go into my old messages, eventually I'll find one that says, oh, I'm not going to find it, but I can then rate the venue to say how well the staff did. I've not got one on there. And that comes straight to the venue. And the last one I did was I was met at the door by Fred. What an incredible chap he is. Introduced himself, took me to a chair, but also got me some water and showed me where the accessible toilet was before I met Neil. Obviously, that was a visit for Gavin going to this venue where he was meeting Neil. And that, whew, wish I bought some water, is how Welcome works and what it does. Now, there's lots in there, I know. The key for me is for people to give it a shot. Download the app, set up a profile and give it a go. If you don't like it, delete it. I don't mind. However, if one of you decides to use it, everybody in this group who lives in the same area as that person is going to benefit from that person using the app. Other people will just turn up and have to say, don't touch my dog and do all those other things that they might have to do. So that's Welcome. That's how it works. And I'm open to questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Gavin.
Hello, Colin again. If there are any businesses that are around in the area that I live in Horwich near Bolton, and they don't actually use this system, is it easy enough for me to give them information to get in contact with you to be added to subscribe to it?
100%, and it is a massive part. As you might imagine, I'm into empowerment in a big way. There are 14.2 million disabled people in the UK. Within the app, disabled people can say where they want it. So let's just take IKEA as an example. If one person requests that IKEA installs this system, and I'll let you know it costs IKEA about £50 a month to have this, 30 to £50 a month for most venues. Charities get it for £10 a month. But if IKEA we contact IKEA and say we've had one person want this to be installed because I had a bad experience at IKEA when I arrived and the person didn't understand I was deaf or didn't understand my child was autistic, whatever it might be. They might go, yeah, we're interested, but yeah, it's not really for us. Now, imagine 1,000 people requesting it. Tell me no then. Tell me no then. I guarantee you, if we had 1,000 people say Sainsbury's should be installing this, we can dictate for the first time business providing services, because we spend money there. We all know that the spending power of disabled people in the UK alone is £274 billion a year, but nobody's ever pulled them all together and said, guys, we've got power here. What Welcome is going to do is it's going to create that power. It's going to say to people, if you want it, if you want my custom, give me better service. Because right now you just take what they give you and that's it. So yeah, I want everybody to say, I want it in my council offices. I want it in my local library. I want it in my local sports centre. We have 75 sports centres in and around your area, all in the Midlands. So Salford has got 17, Leeds has got loads. I'm not sure we've got any in Blackburn yet, although we do have a pedestrian crossing there. You just mention where you want it within the app. Go to, I think it's settings in the app, or help if you're using Android. Who uses Android?
What I can't understand is that the lady behind the counter who's serving the coffee in the coffee shop, she clocks it at 9 o'clock. And she puts on her overall and she sets to serving coffees.
Yep, very true.
So now then, how does she know?
In the morning, if somebody's booked the night before or even 2 hours, we have a 2-hour limit on this, they will get a message to say...
No. She's clocked it at 9 o'clock and she's put her overall on. And she's gone behind the counter and started to serve coffee and toast, whatever.
Yeah. So what we've found increasingly, and I think it's probably more likely than not these days, that most tills are electric. A lot of tills, specifically in coffee shops, actually, are now iPad based. They're using digital. So currently we are on Chrome and Firefox and Internet Explorer, so you have to have access to the internet in order to be able to log in. But increasingly what we'll be able to do is actually combine into their till system so that the message can pop up that Gavin's just about to arrive. Now, when they come in the morning, we want them to then have a look to see if anybody's saying that they're coming in. At that point, what we can do is we can raise their awareness about particular conditions. We know that every single venue is slightly different. Use coffee shop as a great example because it's probably the one where you have the least number of staff and the highest number of people standing in front of you. But what we're trying to do is raise awareness. So if somebody read up about guide dogs when as part of their morning ritual, or even the night before, because somebody said the night before they were coming in, if they just read up on the overview and the top tips when they see a guide dog owner, even if they've forgotten the person's name, and that's a worst case scenario, they're still going to have an awareness of what to do. Of course, it might be that they have somebody come in that day who they miss, but then they've got access to this system in order to be able to train themselves on how to interact the following week because they know that person is coming back again. But if you look at somewhere like a hospital, we have admin teams and we have people who then disseminate information amongst their staff. Increasingly with airports and train stations, the staff member has a PDA or a radio and the person can be saying, this person's going to arrive at platform or the entrance. I want you to go and meet them. Their name is John. John has a guide dog. John needs you to do this, this, and this, and this. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect straight away, but we're improving it all the time.
I think most businesses, I mean, including us as a charity, we have business processes. Like every morning, we'll check our answer phone and we'll check our information email. I'd imagine, cafes, restaurants will check their reservation bookings in diaries. So I think everybody has their own individual processes, really. And I suppose, Gavin, you would just want this to fit in with those, wouldn't you?
Yeah, everybody's got different processes. What I want every single business to do, business or hospital, wherever it might be, every organization, I want them to up their game. I want them to be putting disability higher up than I'll just deal with it when it happens. Because, and this is really important, 80% of disabled people have hidden conditions. People with schizophrenia or mental health or neurodiverse, they're not going into coffee shops because it's not a pleasurable experience for them. But I can make it more pleasurable. I can make it so that they look forward to going to the coffee shop because they know when they go in, they're not going to get the guy behind the counter saying, what's your name, please? And I'll write it onto the cup. Because if you're living with schizophrenia or a neurodiverse, you don't want somebody writing your name on the cup and then shouting your name out. You want to take a seat and somebody bring it across to you and say, there you go, mate. Don't worry about it. Rather than shouting out Stephanie or something when your coffee's ready. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of reasons why things can't work, but there are way more reasons why it can work. And that's the secret here. We can sit and do nothing, or we can actually start addressing some of the problems.
Can you tell me, please, when you were selecting the venue, you scrolled down a very long list of venues. Is that searchable? Can I just put in an initial letter
Yeah, you can search. You might imagine when we first started, we had 3 venues on the platform. There wasn't a need to have a searchable function at that point. But now, if you were to put in searching for the name of a particular venue that you knew, then it would pop up at the top of the screen. In the future, we've got 150 venues now. When we go to our next development, what we'll do is we'll put them into categories. So you might click on restaurants, and then it would be restaurants that are close to you and things like that, coffee shops, corner shops, whatever it might be. So there are lots of ways for us to improve that. Apple will launch a new phone or a new piece of software, and then 2 weeks later there's an update, and when we have the opportunity, we then just update as and when. So yeah, it's a big part. One of the things that's worth for you techies out there, we're just about to move across onto a web app. The web app means we don't have to go through the app store every time we want to update things, so we can update things internally rather than having to wait for 2 weeks for Apple to say, yep, you can now do this or next thing. So that's called the web app.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got one. With this system, then you've got like a multiple choice of different things you could be suffering from. Is it possible to set yourself up with a default profile that you can reuse over and over
That's
again?
it. So the profile that I showed you at the very start is one that I did when I downloaded the app. When you download the app later, and I hope you do, even if you then delete it, just it's up to you, but I don't want you to delete it because hopefully it'll help you. But when you set it up, you're going to see the process. The process will be, hello, what's your name? Please give me your email address. What would you like staff to have an awareness of? What areas of support do you require when you arrive somewhere? Please add a photograph. And then terms and conditions. And I think it's 7 or maybe 8 things. Once you've done that, your profile is set forever. However, you can go into profile and you can update it anytime you want. So if, for instance, you're using a wheelchair one day, but not the next day, you could take that out and put it in, or not use your guide dog and take your long cane, whatever it might be. So you can go in and you can change information on your profile anytime. Good question.
It's almost like a dating app between you and venues.
You know what? Do you know what? I in some ways it might be. It's certainly a social disinhibitor, if that's a word. I am just about to talk to a very large organization, and one of their big drives is to end loneliness. I want staff to know somebody's name, if the person wants them to know their name, before the person walks through the door. I want them to say, hello, Nigel, how are you today? Even though they've never met you. If you want them to know you're Nigel. I want them to know that you want to buy a new pair of trousers before you turn up, if you want them to buy a new pair of trousers. I don't want them to have to feel uncomfortable because they don't know how to talk to somebody, and this happens all the time, where somebody's in a wheelchair and they're talking to the person who's standing next to them. And the person's like, that's my carer, and they get paid £15,000 a year, and I'm a professor and I get paid £55,000 a year, and I want to buy a new car. And you go, stop talking to my carer, please. I'm the guy with the cash, or whatever it might be. I want people to start treating disabled people as if they are, as they should be, the important person in the interaction.
No, so it's a very good idea. I'm surprised nobody's really done it before.
It's madness, isn't it? And I couldn't believe that myself. I am a practitioner. I've been a dog trainer for 28 years, and I was absolutely amazed that nobody had ever used the technology that was there to train staff. We were just relying on this old tried and tested method of train and then keep your fingers crossed that 2 years later the person understands that what a taxia is. And they're not going to understand that. You just can tick the box to say you've done your CSR duty, corporate social responsibility. Yeah, no, I train my staff. If they don't remember, it's up to them because they signed it to say they remembered it.
Gavin, can I ask a question? It's usually here. You said it's 2 hours. Is it the window? So within 2 hours, you can go. I'm just wondering, are you thinking about any solution for somebody maybe who wants to hit the high street on a Saturday, but they're not too sure where they want to go in, and they are on the go, obviously have a visual impairment, they might want to eat a bread, but then they decide they want to go to Starbucks. So is there any plan to kind of make the process a bit quicker?
Well,
in a way.
Anybody who uses rail will be aware of the term turn up and go.
Okay.
And turn up and go is a massive drive for everybody. Of course, it's very challenging to deliver when somebody has specific mobility needs. However, within the app, we have an unscheduled visit button.
Okay.
So if a venue is proficient and they've proved their proficiency in using the service, they can get access to this unscheduled visit button, which means that somebody could just turn up And if they want the venue to know that they've arrived, then they could hit the arrival button and the venue would then know that they'd arrived. However, what they can't do is add in any information, obviously, about what they need. Of course, some people, this is a dreadful gender generalization based on my own experience, but guys generally like to go in, pick it up and leave. In fact, if we could get it at the door, we'd be more than happy. That idea of somebody knowing what I want before going in is not cool, or is great for me. But for many other people, they like to go in and actually browse and ask questions and touch something and feel it and talk about it and things like this. And we want that to be possible for everybody as well. So yes, in the future, unscheduled visits will be available, but for the venues that have proved efficiency in interacting with disabled people.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody would like to ask?
By the same token, if I regularly go to a particular venue, I probably wanted to keep telling the staff that I'm coming, but does it save my requirements at that venue? So when I go back into WH Smith, does it prompt me that last time I went there, I asked to be shown blah, blah, blah?
Not yet. Do you want to come and work for us, Owen, as a developer? Because you're coming up with some good ideas. We've got a roadmap like you wouldn't imagine of things to add to this. We're just about to launch a two-way messaging system so that you can communicate directly with the customer service team, so that if you're at a train station and your train's late, you could then contact the people at the next train station to say that your passenger assist might have changed or needs might have changed. So we're going to be adding that in for specific venues that want to use it. But that idea of exactly as you say, it is the stuff that we want to be able to add in more and more in the future. Definitely, 100%.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other?
Can I just quickly ask, Gavin? I'm from the Macular Society, regional manager in the south of England. Obviously, we're a big national organisation. Is there a way that you can come and talk this way to some of our team? Or
heck yes. This is what I love doing, obviously. It's so much easier now because Zoom means that, or Teams means that I can do it without having to travel from the Highlands. So I've got 2 other meetings and I'm in different places very constantly. But yes, my drive is to get this message out to say, I want to help you change the world around you. I'm not here to, I mean, if you want to use it, use it. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. But I need to tell people it exists so they have choice, because at the end of the day, this is about choice for all people. So yes, please invite me. We have certain...
It's just your email address. Have you got...
Yeah, no, what I'll do in a second is I'll give you all the information about downloading the app and email addresses and everything ends and be prepped for that. But yes, I am very, very happy to present to all groups around the whole country. We have hotspots right now. The Midlands are a bit of a hotspot because we've got about 75 sports centres that are all signed up. We got funding from Sport England to install it in sports centres. But we have hotspots in London, Brighton, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling, a lot more in Scotland, one in Cumbria that are just going to launch. We're hoping to have a hotspot. We've got Durham, Newcastle. I'm hoping we're going to get some funding to start installing in up to 20 venues in Newcastle.
Whereabouts in Cumbria?
So this is it's the was it
Dr. Brews in Windermere?
Dr. Brews in Windermere, that's it. Dr. Brews. Now they're on the platform, but they haven't gone live yet. And I'm hoping they'll go live in the very near future. When it does, get in there, because, well, not just because they're using Welcome, but I guarantee you, if it's not the best carrot cake you've ever had, let me know. I'll buy it. It's so good. The brownie was awesome.
Gavin, how are you finding the new people? Are you just phoning them, or how are you finding the people that want to join?
So getting disabled people on the platform is just lots of hard work from me, talking and hopefully getting people who use social media to tell other people about it.
What about the organisations?
Yeah, so we're working with Leonard Cheshire currently. Leonard Cheshire are shouting about it increasingly. They posted about it yesterday. We say to our charities, guys, we will promote you for free, but you need to start telling people we exist, because every single one of you have in your modus operandi to improve the lives of disabled people. If there is a solution out there that helps disabled people and you're not telling them about it, well, why not? Why wouldn't you? So increasingly we get our charities to shout about it, but I'm not going to lie to you, that is not easy. We've had so much more success from the local charities than we had from the big ones. The big ones tend to be a little bit fingered at doing their own thing. But the smaller localized ones are, we are here to represent the people in our local area. I don't want to badmouth the big ones because I worked for one for 18 years, but it can be quite challenging getting into their headspace because their headspace is quite focused on what they're doing rather than what somebody else is doing. So yeah, guys, dictate to your large charities. RNIB, brilliant. They're launching in Edinburgh, Belfast, and they've already got it in Judd Street in London. But if there are RNIB offices or anywhere near you, then shout about it. I would say the costs are really low, but charities, it's £10 a month. For £120 a year, a charity can install this in maybe a coffee shop that they run, and then people can practice with it like they do at Forth Valley Sensory Centre or Seascape or Deafblind UK. So we've got a number of charities that already use the platform.
Are you going to get more? Sorry, are we going to get more in the south? I mean, how? If I want,
tell me, do you want it?
Well, it's just how. What do you do? Do you just approach different cafes and things, or do you just? How are you deciding where you're going?
We decide to go where you want us to go.
Oh.
You tell us where you want us, and we go there.
Okay. We
certainly phone them. When we contact them, when we say we've had 1, 2, 5, 10, 100 people say that you need to improve your services in your region. We had, and just show you how effective this can be. One guy, a chap called Ken Reed, who was the chair of RNIB up here, he's now no longer chair, but he walked into House of Fraser on Princes Street. He stood for 5 minutes and he walked out again because nobody came up to him to help him. He requested House of Fraser install the system. We contacted House of Fraser. 3 months later, they went live with the system. One request. This is not 10,000 signatures on a petition that's taken to Downing Street. This is us cutting out the middleman and going straight to the cause of the problem. Access refusals. If somebody gets discrimination or an access refusal, I'm part of the Guide Dog RNIB access refusal panel. People can get an access refusal and yes, beat them up, take them to court, but also suggest how they're going to improve in the future. Staff move. You can train all of your staff and 6 months later, 50% have gone and you're going to get another access refusal. When you've got Welcome in place, access refusals are a thing of the past.
I guess some taxi companies could do with this as well.
Uber, yes. And they're all digital. So there's absolutely no reason why that information can't pop up on their screen and be told it's against the law to refuse access. But we haven't had any requests for Uber. When we start getting requests for Uber, we'll kick bottom, as they say.
It's brilliant. I used to be a visual awareness trainer and, used to go to organizations and various places, supermarkets. But like you say, it's a little drop in the ocean. Those people are moving off. Are they going to use it? Are they going to come across? It's just, for me as an ex-trainer, it's just sounds fantastic.
I look, everything that I do is designed to change the planet. We won earlier in this year, we won the World Summit Award for Inclusion and Empowerment, which was goal 10 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we were the first UK company to win that particular award for 5 years. So, and we were the only company to win at all. So that was goal sustainability, 10 on sustainability development goals. So there is real interest in America and Israel. We've had contact from just somebody from Beirut the other day contacted me saying, when's it coming? And I was like, well, when do you want it?
That's brilliant.
Have you got a competition? Is anybody else doing similar things that you
we heard the other day that there's a couple in Australia that are doing something that might be similar, although we couldn't find out costs or anything. But I have no problem at all with competition. Nobody should ever have a problem with competition in private business because it makes you up your game. We're the only company in the world doing it to the level we're doing it. We know that for sure. There's a company out there called FuelServe that means that you can get in Sainsbury's petrol stations, you can get somebody come out and help you with your fuel, but there's not really anybody else that does this new type of staff training based on proximity.
I'm just visualizing blind drivers.
Well, you might joke. I've heard people say that. I've got retinitis, but I can still drive. And you go, what if it gets dark?
Doesn't matter. They're gonna get home by then.
They go, that's where I've got light. You go, no.
If anybody has any question for Gavin, because we've gone over.
Oh yeah, I need to give everybody the information. So Welcome by NeateBox on iOS and on Android. Welcome by NeateBox. And NeateBox is spelled NeateBox. So Welcome by NeateBox is the name of the app. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's at welcome_CS, at welcome_CS, which is obviously customer service. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's just NeateBox. If you go on YouTube and put in welcome or Welcome by NeateBox or Gavin Neate or NeateBox, you'll get tired of hearing me talk if you're not tired of it. There is loads about us out there, but please download the app. Please start requesting venues. If you want to practice, use the welcome demo venue like I did today. If you book a visit there, you don't have to turn up. If you book a visit anywhere else on the app, they'll expect you to turn up, obviously. So book a visit to the welcome demo venue, and I'll then send you back information about the information that you've got in there.
Take it it's easy enough to cancel a visit if you need to as well.
Yeah, you can cancel a visit very easily. Just go into the platform, go to visits, press cancel, and it cancels a visit.
Can you narrow your time, your visiting time, from 3 hours to like a half an hour? Or so instead of saying,
yeah, it's up to 2 weeks. You can do 2 weeks in advance.
I don't mean it like if you say you're coming between 9 and 12, can you say actually I'm coming at 10 or 10 and 10:30?
You don't need to, because you do the manual arrival button. They don't need to do anything. It's not like somebody needs to wait at the door between 9 and 12. This is all about, you don't need to do anything. It might be I've just decided not to come and I forgot to cancel it.
But for example, if you're somebody who can't actually use your phone for whatever reason, and then a friend does it for you, pre-book it the day before, and you don't have the ability to press the button that you arrived, can you narrow the visiting time like to half an hour?
Yeah, in your messages you can say I'm going to be there at 9:30.
Okay.
So yeah, there's loads of things you can do in your messaging. But yeah, that's it. Just to let my ex-forces chums know that I'm massively into helping ex-forces, obviously for very good reason, being ex-forces myself. So yeah, come and join me.
Right. Well, thank you, Gavin. Tim here, Site Advice, South Lakes. That was excellent. So
thank you.
Yeah, just basically, download the Welcome app, people. And you'll get a better user experience and informally train the whole community at the same time. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate the time I've spent.
Thank you, Gavin.
Future Vision and Live Well. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. Future Vision events take place on the fourth Thursday of each month at 10 AM. Live Well sessions concentrate on making the most of life with sight loss. These sessions take place on the second Thursday of each month at 10 AM. To attend the next session or to suggest future topics, please contact your local Sight Society, who will be able to provide you with the Zoom link.